The Nakamichi Dragon has been a divisive product to say the least. I've experienced and reviewed that system on multiple occasions, once with dual 8-inch subs and more recently with an additional dual 12-inch subs for a total of 4 subwoofers with 6 drivers, and I was extremely impressed with its performance. And now I've had the chance to review the baby brother to the Nakamichi Dragon, the Shockwave, in my own space. So, is it as impressive as the Dragon? Let's discuss. Okay, so disclaimer. The Shockwave does have a dedicated app that will facilitate calibration. However, at the time of this review, the app was not available for me to download as it's still in production, so I was not able to calibrate the Shockwave. So your experience will likely vary, as I assume that the app will be available once the Shockwave starts shipping to customers, and then you'll be able to calibrate the Shockwave to your environment. The Nakamichi Dragon and the Nakamichi Shockwave are both high-end home theater sound systems, but they cater to slightly different priorities and offer distinct features. Like its big brother, the Shockwave supports Dolby Atmos and DTS and has multiple HDMI inputs that support HDMI 2.1 with eARC, as well as legacy connections like optical and analog inputs. However, where the Dragon allows you to upgrade to dual or even quad 12-inch subwoofers, the Shockwave is not modular, but you do get dual 10-inch subwoofers. The Dragon has an on-screen display for customization, along with a very intuitive app. The Shockwave does not have an on-screen display, but it does have app control, but again, since it's still in production, I was not able to test its functionality. The Shockwave, like its big brother, supports multi-channel audio with an 11.2.6 speaker configuration, minus the 2 subwoofer drivers on the Dragon, which supports a native 11.4.6 configuration. But the Shockwave should give you pretty much the same experience. So how does it actually sound? For content, I'm using a Zadew Z20 Pro, and all content is ripped from 4K Blu-rays and being streamed over my local network from a home theater PC. When I reviewed the Dragon, that was in a dedicated room. The Shockwave is in my living room in the complete opposite environment and a not so ideal open floor plan, so I was very curious to see how the Shockwave would sound in an acoustically and physically challenging environment. However, there's a big asterisk here because without the companion app to calibrate, the Shockwave is at the mercy of my room. So let's talk about the good. Like the Nakamichi Dragon, I was enveloped with an extremely immersive audio experience with movies like Godzilla Minus One, Ready Player One, Top Gun Maverick, and A Quiet Place. Like the Dragon, the Shockwave is just absolutely amazing when it comes to reproducing and placing objects and sound effects in places where there's no physical speaker, particularly on the sides, behind, and overhead. During the race scene in Ready Player One, I could distinctly hear Kong running behind and up above me as he's frantically grunting. I just heard Kong running behind me and frantically grunting. You got it, you got it! In Top Gun Maverick, when the airmen are in Compton's corner, the channel separation will make you think there are multi-channel discrete speakers all around you.
We're not out of this yet! Here it comes! Radar warning! Smoke in the air, Phoenix, break right!
Emergency Jackson! Delta 3 defending!
Closing out! Delta 1 defending!
Godzilla Minus One has probably the best dynamic range on a 4K Blu-ray that I've heard, and the Shockwave does a good job not only with atmospherics, but the bass is also just as devastating as Godzilla's on-screen presence. And the incredible sound design in A Quiet Place is replicated with precision on the Shockwave, with its dynamic atmosphere going from near silent scenes to straight chaos. Now, there are a few caveats. One, no app control available at the time of this review. I've said that many times already, and I will probably bring it up again. At times, the bass can be a little bit boomy. Now, part of the reason for this is probably due to my open floor plan and lack of proper acoustic treatment, but that's where the app control with calibration would come in. But since I don't have access to the app, I have no way of knowing what type of calibration is available and how effective it is to compensate for a not so ideal space. Now, I did initially set up the Shockwave in my bedroom for about a week before installing it in my living room, and the bass was much better there, obviously in a more controlled, closed off space. No on-screen menu. No on-screen menu like the Nakamichi Dragon. This for me is kind of a big one. Having to rely solely on a tiny screen to change settings is not a complete hassle, but it's just not efficient, especially after seeing how intuitive the Dragon's on-screen menu is. Now, I'm not sure if this can be upgraded in the future to support an on-screen display, but the Dragon definitely has the upper hand there. But then again, if I had access to the app, I probably wouldn't care as much since I could just look at my phone to adjust settings. Also, while the channel separation is there and does a great job of placing objects in places where there are no speakers, at times it didn't always sound as cohesive and clean sounding as it sounded when I heard it at CES in January. That being said, part of that is probably because I have no way of setting speaker distances and configuration, whether it's mounted on a wall or on a speaker like you can with the Dragon, in addition to my challenging environment. Again, I don't want to beat a dead horse, but I only have a limited amount of time to review. Speaker placement is limited and no app to calibrate, so being essentially a pre-production unit without a way to calibrate, I'm going to assume that by the time you get the Shockwave in your hands, the experience is going to be much more refined, and with app control, you'll have much more control with calibration than I did. I'm not sure if the unit I heard at CES had a different firmware than what I have, but that experience sounded awesome, and I still stand by that. So I know what the Shockwave is capable of, but I just couldn't replicate that in my space to the extent of what I experienced at CES. The experience in my home wasn't bad, it just didn't sound as refined as it did at CES. And that was also uncalibrated and in a not so ideal environment. My environment being far worse, but having access to calibrate and set speaker distances is going to make a big difference. Now, you do have access to 3 different quick calibration presets on the remote, and you can adjust levels to each driver set, treble levels, along with the subs, and you can also adjust the AHD, or adaptive height dispersion, on the remote as well. But again, by the time you get this thing in your hands, you'll probably have access to the app, and some of the minor caveats I experienced will probably not even be an issue for you. Plus, most of you will probably be putting the Shockwave in a much more controlled environment, and that will only help calibration and refine your setup further. So, is it as impressive as the Dragon? Well, yes and no. You're pretty much getting the same functionality and fidelity as the Dragon as far as speaker count, minus 2 subwoofer drivers on the Dragon, so you're not really losing out on speaker configuration. However, the Dragon can be upgraded to more powerful subs with bigger 12-inch drivers, and you get better quality drivers on the rest of the speakers on the Dragon versus the Shockwave. If you want to learn more about that, watch my CES video where the CEO talks about that.
Hey, this is Ray from Nakamichi. I'm the CEO and creator. So we're here launching this brand new Shockwave 11.2.6.
You also get an on-screen menu that you can pull up on your display with the Dragon, but I've been told that there isn't one for the Shockwave. But I'm assuming you'll basically get an on-screen display with the mobile app. The object placement and channel separation with the phantom height activity that I experienced at my coworker's theater with the Dragon is as equally impressive with the Shockwave. So, users who want a significant upgrade in your home theater audio over your standard TV speakers or cheap run-of-the-mill soundbar, and you're looking for stronger bass and immersive surround sound, but prefer a more integrated system than a traditional AVR and separate speakers, and potentially at a more accessible price point than the Dragon, then you definitely want to check out the Shockwave. The Nakamichi Dragon represents the pinnacle of their soundbar technology, aiming for the absolute best in immersive audio performance with a no-compromise approach. The Nakamichi Shockwave series offers a very high level of performance and immersion that's trickled down from the Dragon, while being somewhat more streamlined in setup and often more accessible in price with a few less features. So that's my review of the Nakamichi 11.2.6 Shockwave. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to unleash its full potential in my setup without the app to fine-tune and calibrate to my surroundings. But again, having heard this firsthand at CES and knowing the potential it possesses, I'm extremely confident that once the Shockwave gets into consumers' hands with the companion app, you'll have the same level of excitement that I experienced at CES. Don't forget to like the video, share it with your fellow Nakamichi enthusiasts, and subscribe if you haven't already. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.
Here it comes! Radar warning! Smoke in the air,